I'm Esther, CEO of Olabot, a platform that's making it easy and fun to build personal bots. So in April of this year, I launched Estherbot. It was a side project that came from a really genuine place of need. The company that I'd been working for was struggling to raise another round, and I could basically just see the writing on the wall. So I realized, okay, I should probably go update my LinkedIn and poke around for new opportunities in my network. But as I went to go update my resume, I was just like, this does a terrible job of explaining who I am, what I value, what I really bring to the table. And so I started poking around with the idea of a bot being able to do more of that for me. So I started by creating a scripted, super simple, pretty lame personal resume bot, and I was really surprised by the reaction that it got. In my bot, I didn't just talk about my professional experience, though. I also dove into my personal story because I really believe fundamentally that storytelling and conversation is how we really connect to each other. It's also how we learn about the world around us. And so I, just really shared about my very kind of odd path into tech. I also talked a bit about my personality, like what you could expect from me being on your team. So I talked about how I'm highly driven to succeed, but then I felt like, well, why is that? It's better to know sort of the backstory of that. So I talked about how I grew up in poverty, and that my deep curiosity came from a place of wanting to know about the world because I grew up in this really crazy religious cult that was very insular. And so my bot could tell so much more about me and sort of the backstory. Instead of just saying, oh, I went to college, I studied Arabic, I have my master's in international relations, I really sort of set the stage to let you know, well, why I would be curious about fundamentalism and how 9/11 really impacted me and made me want to go study Arabic and took me to this other part of the world. So having that personal story gave you more context for me. I also talked a little bit about how that feeling of abandonment and isolation really drove me onto the internet at a super young age, that it enabled me to chat with people on ICQ and go into AOL chat rooms, and how those experiences really expanded my mind. And that being on the internet was a catalyst for then tinkering around and learning design principles and building websites, and that led me to being an early blogger and growing that blog to millions of readers. Again, more of my story in the bot was about how I was super early on YouTube. I was one of the first success stories on the platform. And that instead of waiting for a revenue sharing infrastructure, I became my own agent and negotiated six-figure sponsorship deals. And so I've had this really amazing front row seat through the evolution of social, and my bot was able to tell that story, and it also really led to me seeing how bots are the next evolution of social. So talking about where social is going, I love this because social is even more popular than porn, which is really saying something. That's because people are hardwired for empathy and connection. And at the heart of social is the personal profile. That's where you go to share about yourself and to learn about someone else. And so if you talk about how the profile has evolved, you can see back in 1996, when a lot of us first got online, kind of dating myself a little bit here, you had these really static text-based profiles. And yes, they've evolved. Now we have multimedia content and interactivity. A hallmark of modern profiles is that you can interact with them. You can give likes and leave comments. There's a timeline. But really, if you think about the most advanced personal profiles today, they are dating profiles. We tell dating services all kinds of things about ourselves in order to better match us with potential partners. So they have these really fascinating interest graphs, but that data is typically locked down. And so what dating profiles show is that if you're willing, or if you're able to provide someone with real value, they're willing to divulge a lot of information. And what I would like to say is that we are on the brink of a new era in social. I think everyone in this room already knows that messaging is the dominant paradigm on mobile. Of course, 7 out of the top 10 apps in the App Store are messaging apps. And so the question then becomes, like, what does a personal profile look like in this new kind of era? Traditional profiles that we're seeing are static and frankly pretty boring. They don't represent us very effectively, and they're definitely not native to this new messaging environment. There are 3 big problems that I see with profiles today. The first is that everyone who comes to your profile has the exact same experience of you, no matter what they're actually there for or how well they already know you. Second, your personal data is scattered and unused. You have this data in lots of different places. And then last, it's really difficult to then figure out how to find useful information about a person. So for instance, you might regularly listen to podcasts or books on Audible, but can that information be surfaced 6 months later when you're meeting someone new who's also listened to those same books or those same podcasts? Soon, everybody will have a personal bot. And what we're doing at Olabot is we're working on the conversational profile. The conversational profile is essentially a bot that knows and learns about you. We're working on making profiles more natural and more human by making them adapt to the person that's interacting with them. So the first 3 things that problems we're really focused on solving to make sure that you get a personal bot that really relates well to you is 1, making sure they're conversational. Second, having relevant third-party integrations so that you can fast-track training your bot. And then third, making sure that the training is really effortless. So in Olabot, we really think of training as kind of like our secret sauce. We want to make it really fun. And we're using a technique that I call continuous onboarding. Instead of making you fill out these tedious forms, we simply use your personal bot to quiz you on an ongoing basis. So it's one of the things I think is pretty interesting to watch in our closed beta testers is that it's really amazing how fast a rich profile can be put together with just a couple of days worth of these interactions, these questions. So questions might be things like, what's your favorite Thai dish? Do you believe jealousy is healthy in a relationship? How do you feel about the debate last night? Those kinds of things. So we'll also ping you in real time about current events so that we can feel out how you feel about things that are going on, to learn about your personality, politics, and more. And if you doubt that people will actually engage in this way, we're seeing that 40 to 50 questions get answered in a single session because it's really easy to do. And we have both single player and multiplayer modes. So I'm going to kind of show you a really quick demo of our single player mode on Messenger. And this is just like a video screencast that I took. So you can see here is we enable you to connect in with services, in this case Spotify, so that you can just train your bot really quickly about your musical taste, so we never have to actually ask you. We just see what you're listening to. And once you've connected in, now we know all about your musical taste. And jump right into training mode. Training mode is asking you these basic questions, so this one's do you like coffee? How do you feel about George Bush saying he's going to vote for Hillary Clinton? We'll also show you friends who voted the same way. And these questions unlock additional functionality. When you go to someone else's bot, you'll instantly get an overview of how you match with someone in all these different categories. Today, there are billions of personal profiles, but in the near future, there will be billions of personal bots, because they're really the natural evolution of the personal profile, going from static pages to really dynamic conversational interfaces. And these bots will capture your stories, your interests, your behaviors, and ultimately your voice. So yeah, of course, like the sci-fi version of this is still a ways off, but today we can already provide real value by making it easier to share who you authentically are and then surface these commonalities between people. So in time, as the bot learns more about you, then it can have more proactive agency to make it more of an extension of yourself. So that's it. Any questions about personal bots?
Are there questions?
Yeah.
So I know you've built a couple of bots for people. Can you talk about the bots that are out there?
Yeah, so over the summer we released a few personal bots, one for Chris Messina, one for a guy, Red Foo, of the band LMFAO. The goal was really to test out different integrations, really figure out like how do normals integrate with bots. So like Red Foo was a great example of this. We connected it to his Facebook page, and he has 4 million fans. And so on a daily basis, he was just getting like inbound messages from people who didn't otherwise know they were talking to a bot. And we wanted to see like, well, how did people interact with this, and what did they like expect? We found some like interesting things. Like first of all, like a lot of people thought he was hacked because he was responding so quickly, and they were like, holy shit, like, is Red Foo really talking to me? Is he not? Like, this is his voice, because we made sure that we really put his personality into the responses. The other thing that we thought was really interesting is that Chris's bot. Chris is a guy who works at Uber. He's like I would say like a tech evangelist or something. And on average, he would get 22 messages for the first time someone came in and chatted with his bot. And those were useful, relevant responses. They actually, let people do things like look at his calendar and book office hours with him, send him a direct message. We had an integration with Uber for both Chris and Red Foo, so that in Red Foo's bot, this is a great example. If you opt in with Uber and you were in an Uber later on, we would send you Red Foo's music to listen to in the car on your ride. So we just like tested out these different ideas, and we're like continuing to like throw out these personal bots as tests, but they're a little bit separate from the platform we're building, but they were really there to inform what we should build and what sort of the minimum viable product that we could put out. So yeah.
Thanks for Estherbot, and thanks for putting it out on GitHub. What was the biggest surprise? What mistake would you tell us not to make based on that? That's number one. Number two is it looks like Olabot is personal rather than professional. Would you please disrupt LinkedIn for us?
Okay, so the first question was, what's some mistakes that I've made that I could share for you not to make? I think focus on just like one platform at a time. And one of the things that we've done is we've built on Kik and Messenger. We had to initially, and that's been really hard because they have different kinds of features. We've also built an iMessage app extension, which actually is really, really fun and exciting. It's like our multiplayer mode where you go in and you're not actually talking to a bot at all, you're talking to another human, and you're sort of unknowingly or knowingly training your bot so that all the answers and interactions that you're having with the other person are being logged in Olabot, and so that is something we think actually has a lot of potential. But I would say like focus on one platform initially. So we focused initially on Messenger and really, really got to know that platform deeply. But we started by looking at a lot of platforms. So I would say just like focus on one place. LinkedIn. Yeah. So right now, Olabot is more personal and more fun. Our demographic that we're going after is like high school, college age folks. But we definitely see like an opportunity to add more resume and professional kinds of content in there so that people who are wanting to get to know you for professional reasons will also be able to do so.
Hello. I have a question about how you're going to be using the profiles on like a data level. Are you going to possibly be using that for demographic research, market research, and then turning that over to, say, an ad agency or companies? Are you secretly building this master profile of the world's minds and breaking it down by person?
Dun, dun, dun. That's evil. So, I mean, I would just borrow, Google's motto of don't be evil. Like, I would think for us, like, because we are getting essentially this like master personal profile, and people feel safe connecting into all these services because they want to make their bot so much better and make it more efficient to train. I think that we really have a particular obligation to not turn that kind of information over and not serve ads and not use it for malicious purposes. So if anything, I think as a company, we have to be even more careful and more upfront to say, like, we will never do that, and at some point that means you're going to have to pay us something. Our model right now is really focused on in-app purchases in the future, how to better personalize your bot and pay for that. So we probably won't ever be able to rely on advertising so that we don't end up selling your information.
You opened your talk, I'm over here, I'm sorry, hello, hi. You opened your talk by saying that someday everybody will have personal bots. What about people who aren't celebrities or aren't brands or aren't personalities? What would an everyday person do with a bot? It seemed like you started to touch on that with a LinkedIn answer. I'd be curious to hear you talk more about that.
Yeah, so again, it's really an extension of the personal profile. Like, everybody in this room guaranteed has a personal profile on Facebook or Twitter or somewhere, and so this is, to me, the next logical extension of the evolution of the personal profile. So what will people use them for? They'll use them to get to know each other, to interact, to share more about themselves, to schedule meetings, to have fun. Like, one of the things we've built in is like a personal quiz that's really popular for particularly like teenagers who want to sort of have this like, I know, Madison better than you do kind of a thing. So yeah, I think everybody will have one, and the reasons that they'll have them will be very varied. Sure, one more question. Also, I'm happy to talk afterwards, or if you guys want to see live demos of anything, come up to me and be like, hey, I really want to see the iMessage, or I really want to see what it looks like to see someone else's profile. Even though it's in closed beta and I'm not like opening it up to everybody, I'm happy to show it to you. So, yeah.
So I really like that you talked about changing out the personal profile with bot, but what I was kind of concerned about, and I guess it's anything that's forward-facing in the future, is what kind of security would be around that? Because if you're teaching a bot and it's going to have so much personal information about you all in one place, like what are any security measures around it for, like, if someone got a hold of your personal bot? Or even like you talked about teenagers and they want to take a quiz for like who knows more about Madison, what's going to keep that bot from being able to be hacked and used as you?
Yeah, so the question was around security. If you have all of your info in one spot, how do you protect people? So I would say that we are thoughtful about it. Right now, our approach is pretty open, so we don't enable you to put like a password on it. Although we have that functionality available, we do it for ourselves right now. Like in the closed beta, we have a lock on our Olabot that you have to have a password to get in. We're thinking about how do people potentially want to manage sort of the structure of some of this information, but right now the idea is to keep it pretty open. So if you start to build a personal bot, then you probably just wouldn't include answers to things that you feel is too personal for folks to know about, and I think that what we're seeing is that people are actually willing to reveal quite a bit, but not everybody. Some folks want to skip the politics category, for instance. They're like, I don't really want people to know how I feel about the election or these particular social issues. But for those who are willing, it's available and open. And over time, we'll think more about how we might create limits or circles. But honestly, Google Plus did this really well, right? They made it so that you could lock down different parts of your profile to different people, and it turns out people really don't like doing that shit. It's hard, and it's tough to manage, and it's you either kind of go with it or you don't. So I think we'll have some of those tools and functionality, but it's going to be down the road. Oh, another one.
Hi, you mentioned the training data that you're pulling. Can you talk a little bit about maybe the sources, the machine learning behind it, or that you're using, you're developing, and then also whether the bot will adapt the person's voice? Will the way the bot speaks change?
Yeah, so will the bot adapt to a person's voice? That's going to take a long time, and it's not in our near-term roadmap. In the near term, it's more about just delivering answers and mapping questions to the right domains, so that a great example is, so I answered the question of, do I drink coffee? And I said no. Someone who comes into my bot should be able to ask something like, what kind of espresso do you like? And then be able to see the return answer immediately, be like, well, Esther doesn't drink coffee. She drinks tea, and she really likes chai with skim milk, right? So those are the kinds of things that we're more focused in the near term on mapping questions and domains together, so that people can ask questions and get appropriate answers. Did that answer it? Okay, great.
Thank you, Esther. Give Esther Crawford a hand, please. That was really interesting.